For decades, we've been told there are only two ways a nation can build prosperity. One path puts faith in the state, in planning, coordination, and centralized control. The other praises private enterprise, innovation, markets, and the invisible hand. And the myth says that one of them must be right, that prosperity is simply about choosing the correct side. But history tells a different story, because the real driver of prosperity is neither the state nor the market. It's something far more uncomfortable and far more revealing. Welcome to Time and Money Tales, where money, power, and history collide, and nothing is ever as simple as it looks. Why does this debate matter right now? Because every major economy on Earth is quietly reorganizing the relationship between governments and markets. China is tightening control over its tech giants. The United States is pumping billions into strategic industries. Europe is trying to rebuild manufacturing while managing energy crises. And ordinary people feel the consequences directly. Prices rising faster than wages, wealth concentrating into fewer hands, industries disappearing from one country and reappearing in another, retirement savings swaying with every policy shift. We're told these outcomes come from too much state or too much market, but that's a distraction. The real question, the one that determines prosperity, is not who controls the economy, but how power is structured inside it. Let's start with a paradox economists don't like to talk about. The greatest periods of market expansion in history only happened with heavy state involvement. Think about the Industrial Revolution. Factories didn't emerge because entrepreneurs suddenly became creative. They emerged because governments built the foundations, the canals, the roads, the railways, the legal systems, the contract enforcement mechanisms. The state standardized currency, it stabilized credit, and, perhaps most importantly, it protected industrialists from catastrophic failure. Britain didn't let the market decide. It engineered the environment that allowed markets to exist. The idea of a purely private sector boom is a comforting myth. The reality is that markets are born inside the framework the state creates. But the opposite is also true. When the state tries to replace markets entirely, prosperity collapses. The Soviet Union is the clearest example. It industrialized at a speed the world had never seen. But without real markets, without price signals, without decentralized experimentation, the system eventually collapsed under the weight of its own information problem. Too much central control suffocates the signals economies rely on: scarcity, demand, risk, innovation. A command system can force production, but it can't force creativity. Prosperity requires adaptability, something planned economies cannot produce at scale. So, if state control fails and pure markets fail, then what actually works? History gives us one answer. Prosperity emerges when states and markets share power, but do not merge power. When neither side becomes so dominant that it distorts incentives, crushes innovation, or captures regulation. Every prosperous system in history has operated under a hidden rule. Dynamic tension creates lasting wealth. Not harmony, not purity, tension. The state provides stability, rules, and long-term planning. Private enterprise brings innovation, risk-taking, and competition. Each forces the other to improve. But when either side eliminates the counterweight, prosperity dies. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The real battle isn't state versus market, it's who captures whom. When the state captures the market, you get stagnation. When the market captures the state, you get corruption. This is the story of the American Gilded Age. Railroad tycoons controlled politicians. Regulators were appointed by the industries they were supposed to police. The market didn't win, monopoly won. And monopoly is just state power outsourced to private hands. But go to the opposite extreme, Venezuela or earlier Mao's China, and you find the state absorbing so much control that innovation dies entirely. Competition disappears, value evaporates. Prosperity dies whenever one side eliminates the counterforce that restrains it. Now let's look at the world's most ambitious modern experiment, China. For 40 years, China built a hybrid engine, strict political control paired with decentralized commercial freedom, state-backed industrial strategy fused with aggressive private sector innovation. The result was the fastest poverty reduction in human history. But as China tightens control over tech giants and private capital, another pattern emerges. Growth slows, prosperity plateaus, entrepreneurship loses momentum. Not because the state is incompetent, but because the balance is shifting, the tension is weakening, and prosperity depends on that tension. Now look at the United States. America loves to claim it's a free market economy, but the U.S. has always been a state-guided system. The government funded the railroads, it built the interstate highways, it created the technologies that power your smartphone, from GPS to microchips to the internet itself. The public sector built the platform, private enterprise built on top of it. But over the last 40 years, something changed. Private enterprise quietly captured the state. Lobbyists write the regulations meant to restrain them. Mergers pass with little resistance. Industries consolidate. Competition fades. The result? Rising inequality, fragile supply chains, financial speculation overshadowing real innovation. America doesn't suffer from too much market, it suffers from too little counterweight. So what actually drives prosperity? Not the market, not the state, not ideology, not purity, but well-designed conflict. When markets push for innovation and efficiency, and states push for fairness, stability, and long-term planning, each corrects the excesses of the other. History's most prosperous societies all share three hidden features. First, competitive markets, real competition, not monopolies hiding behind free market slogans. Second, a strong but limited state, capable of building infrastructure, enforcing rules, and preventing capture, but not smothering innovation. And third, institutional tension, a balance where neither side gets to dominate. Prosperity is not a destination, it's a balance point, and one that the world is drifting away from. But here's the final paradox. Prosperity isn't efficient. It's not clean or simple. It's not ideological. It's messy, contested, constantly renegotiated. Whenever a society tries to optimize prosperity by choosing a winner, state or market, it destroys the tension prosperity depends on. Capitalism needs the state needs capitalism, and both must fear each other, because fear, not harmony, is the engine of progress. So what does this mean for you? You live inside this system. Your job, your savings, your opportunities, all shaped by the push and pull between public and private power. But understanding the game gives you leverage. When you recognize how prosperity is actually created, you become resistant to the myths designed to manipulate you. Government is the problem. Business knows best. More control equals stability. Less regulation equals growth. None of these statements are fully true. None of them are fully false. They are tools, political weapons, used to shape how you think. But now, you understand the pattern. Prosperity is not about the state. It's not about the market. It's about maintaining the tension that keeps both in check. Economic history is a weapon, and now it's in your hands. If this gave you a new perspective, subscribe. History doesn't repeat, but it exposes the systems that run our world. And I'll show you where to look next.